Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about awakenings. It might not be obvious, but there are many beautiful things happening on planet Earth now as more and more people are having spiritual awakenings and realizing that there's much more to the world, to the universe, and to reality itself than they thought. And more people are on the cusp of having their own spiritual awakenings as part of planet Earth's transition from third density into fourth. So what can we expect to see in this awakening process as it continues? And how can we help others in their awakenings without violating free will? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week to let you know what we'll be talking about that week, as well as the Zoom link. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Trisha Bean from the L&L Research Channeling team. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, the topic for today is awakenings. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, go ahead, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Dr. J.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Dr. Jonathan Locus, and I am calling from Tampa, Florida. And I am excited to be here today. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me.
It is always so great to see you. Better looking, Jonathan, and other self. Neely?
Hey, I'm Neely, and I'm calling from Happy Valley, Oregon, and I am super excited to do this podcast with you too.
We're always super excited to have you back, and we're glad to see you again. Did want to remind our viewers, as always, none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just normal people like you having conversations about spiritual things that seem important to us. Anything we say could be wrong, and you're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on planetary awakenings. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what words are coming out of their mouths as they're speaking them. It is as if they're talking in their sleep. This is how contact was made with an entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what is being said, what words are coming out of their mouths as they're speaking them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness, different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying that they do for centuries. We would refer to this as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Obviously, a significant quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond the consciousness of what we would call inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group consciousness. Clearly a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fifth density. There is more to it than that, and if you want to learn more, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to the present day by the LNL research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those channeling sessions in the LNL Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a few passages on Planetary Awakening. On March 16th, 2003, Quo said, "It is indeed a precious moment and a promising time of rapidly awakening consciousness planet-wide, and it has been pressed into being and encouraged by the seemingly disastrous policies of those who wish war among your peoples at this time. There is pressure planet-wide at the level of those who remember whole societal-wide catastrophic scenarios and wish beyond all reason to reinvent them. That presses these entities onward. Much of this harvest then expresses enormously deep archetypical energies that have been stuck for an unusually long period of time, repeating seemingly endless cycles of rising toward the light, rising towards union, rising towards an awareness of love in its unconditional and redeeming aspect, only to fall back to the level of the great apes and their tribal loyalties and the protection of the family group." And on January 6, 2001, Quo said, "At the dawning of this density of love, it is a dark-seeming hour. This instrument has the phrase, 'It is always darkest before the dawn,' and we would say that this is indeed the case as regards this planetary sphere and its inner planes as well. For there has been a great deal of building up of unbalanced karma, as this instrument would call it, in the interactions betwixt selves and individual lives, in betwixt groups of selves and societal lives, and in betwixt the selves that live upon the sphere and the sphere itself. And all of these imbalances cry out with a voice of sorrow. There's a tremendous amount of suffering that rises from your planet. At the same time, there's a tremendous amount of lightening of the darkness that has begun to occur because more and more entities are awakening to their spiritual identity. And it is for this awakening that you took the tremendous risk of incarnation." Great way to start the podcast on a downer note, but I just find it endlessly fascinating and amusing that these sessions happened in 2003 and 2001, and things seem so much more intense and so much more dark now than back then. It is just an amazing thing. And yet, as mentioned, it's not obvious, but yes, there are many beautiful things happening as more and more people are having spiritual awakenings and realizing that, yes, there is better ways to live and much more to the world than they thought. That's all I got for starters. Dr. J, you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I was kind of laughing when you said like starting off on a downer. I'm like, they really know how to make talk about things very dimly using beautiful words. I'm like, they're like, what I would say is, like even when they were talking about that kind of moving upwards, and then spiraling down, it made me really think about the importance of having like consistent spiritual practices, right? And being able to have those things that you are self-accountable for, right? That you're doing on a regular basis that can keep you balanced, that I think also can help prevent some of that, I guess, moving backwards or as they mentioned, to like the great apes. And it also makes me think about the importance of community, right? Because even if you may be falling back, because I've been times where I know I haven't been all the way feeling like balanced. But I got people I could call that are balanced that can get me back to where I need to be. And I think that speaks about the importance of being able to have a community that is of high vibration, that can be able to, again, get you where you need to be in case you start to recline or be able to kind of fall back a little bit. And then also I had a note when they mentioned in the second passage about kind of their different interactions between different groups and between different cells, and kind of what I saw with that is just being different roles or just having different parts and pieces in your life. And one of the things I had asked, kind of going through my process of communicating with my spiritual guidance system, is like, what are ways that I could be better at these different roles in my life, specifically father, husband, entrepreneur, since I'm working for myself full time. How can I be better at these things? And one of the things that I got was, even though they're all kind of seemingly different roles, they're the same service. And it's kind of just service being kind of deployed in different ways, different magnitudes, but it's the same service. And that's kind of helped me be able to kind of better understand that, you know, it is service. We're here to be in a service. Now, we may be doing it different ways depending on who we're talking to, right, and where they're at a vibration, but it's that same service. So I'll conclude with that, but really did love the two passages that we started with.
Yeah, and so much that you said to unpack. We could easily spend the next 2 hours just talking about that. But I really appreciate your mentioning the importance of having some kind of spiritual practice, including meditation, which is recommended more than anything else by our friends in the Confederation. And the value of having a spiritual community, I think, is important, whether it's people physically meeting in your geographical vicinity or people who meet online. And that's a good reminder to our viewers that if you go to the L&L Research website that I showed at the top of the episode and click on Connect and Study Groups, you'll find there's Law of One study groups all over the country, all over the world. And it is a great place to find people that you can have these kind of conversations with and help each other in their awakening process. Neely, did you have anything to add?
Oh, yeah, so much. Um, so I loved, Jonathan, what you said about community, and I want to go into it in a minute. But let me start with a downer. Um, so I had a front row seat to see exactly what it looks like when you go up, 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 and then you're being pulled down. So the situation in the Middle East right now cannot be more horrific than it is. It probably cannot be. But I've seen at the beginning of the 90s how they started talking peace. And there was peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And in Israel, the schools were teaching the children about peace, and there were songs of peace in the street and in ceremonies, and it just looked so beautiful. In 1994, both Peres, who was the prime minister, and Arafat, who was the leader of the Palestinians, received the Nobel Peace Prize for the Oslo Accords. And then in 1995, the prime minister of Israel was assassinated, and that started the whole spiraling down to get things to be the way they are today. So this thing is more than archetypical. This has been happening again and again, and we can see how it's happening around us right now as well. However, in the midst of all that, there has always been community. and there has always been people who were, coming together and helping the hungry and helping the wounded on both sides. So amidst of all of that that's being perpetrated by the energies that want to pull everything down, there is the awakening of people, and people see people as people and not dehumanize them. So that's really a comfort for me. And yes, things seem really, really grim right now. And it's exactly like what they said in the second passage. We're talking about a lot of unbalanced karma. And before we move on to the next density, all of the unbalanced karma needs to come up to the surface. And we see it right now. And for everybody who's seeing it and is despairing about the situation of the world, no, that is indeed, the dark before the dawn, because we cannot clear that karma if we are not aware of it.
Well said. Like I mentioned, we could spend the next 2 hours just unpacking everything you guys are saying. But yeah, the part about the unbalanced karma, I think, cannot be emphasized enough. For those who are not aware of this, it has been said many times by the entities known as Ra and Quo that the majority of the population of planet Earth, the majority of human souls incarnated at this time, came from Mars, Maldek, Atlantis, Sirius, Deneb, the list goes on and on. All civilizations that either blew themselves up, destroyed themselves, or rendered their worlds uninhabitable for third density through this endlessly repeating karmic cycles of fear and war and bellicosity. So everything that's happening in the Middle East and in Ukraine and Russia, and yes, we have folks in the Loved One community on all sides of those particular debates. So don't feel like we're choosing one particular side or the other. We're choosing the side of peace and love and understanding. But yes, that is why there seems to be so much war and chaos in the world. And I think it's fair to say it's going to increase only more so as we continue into the transition, because we have that unbalanced karma. I like to think of it as Groundhog Day. Everybody who incarnated in there, and I count myself as one of those, we're being given another beautiful, precious opportunity to see if we can do it better this time. Make different choices. Maybe that won't lead to destruction of our planet and our worlds. Did have another great passage that I think would be worth looking at on this subject. Did either of you have anything you wanted to add on either of these passages before I change the slide?
Yeah, just one little thing, if I may. The very last sentence where they say, and it is for this awakening that you took the tremendous risk of incarnation. I see our role right now as a sacred role. We are here to help people not repeat the same pattern again.
Well said. Yeah, so many in all walks of life. You've said artists, musicians, politicians, ordinary people staying at home working, being single parents or whatever, all came here as wanderers, specifically to help lighten earth energies. Yet another thing that cannot be emphasized enough. Dr. J, did you have anything to add before we change slides? Look at another passage.
No, I didn't have any additions. Thank you.
Cool. So let's take a look at another one. This was from January 20th, 2006. Quo said, "We have seen a tremendous dawn break upon your planet. We realize that the outer picture remains grim. We ask you to look beyond the surface. Those who are in power upon your planet have a great tendency to be oriented toward service to self. It is natural for this to be so at this time, as the dynamic between service to others and service to self becomes more and more obvious. However, this does not have much to do with life as lived by the majority of those upon your planet. In general, we see the peoples of your planet awakening in record numbers all over the globe. It is very exciting to see and feel the energies of the people stir and to become aware of the fact that there is something happening of which they can be a part that is truly positive and that will truly change the face of the earth. It is a dim awareness, but there is a stirring now that cannot be put back to bed. And those among your people who are indeed service to self are most troubled to feel the muscularity and the power of the awakening of the tribes of earth. It is occurring, Groups small and large have begun banding together for positive purposes, not to gain power or to maintain power, but to share power with those who are powerless. That time is now arriving when the last shall be first, the hungry shall be fed, and the rich shall be sent empty away. Really beautiful passage, and I think it just, again, reminds me of what we were talking about at the beginning, that it's not obvious that beautiful things are happening, and you're definitely not going to see these things reported anywhere in what we call mainstream media, because it's not in the interests of corporate media and the ST entities that own them to share about people having spiritual awakenings. They really would prefer that we just stay asleep and keep being happy consumers and keep fighting their endless wars. Neely, did you have any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Yeah. First, I just love how Kuo always managed to find the right thing to say, that you're on the brink of despair, but then they show you a different side of things. So that's really encouraging.
As
Looking at
Jonathan said, they have very poetic ways of telling us we're screwed and how messed up things are. Beautiful phrasing. Sorry to interrupt. Just had to throw that.
exactly. No, yeah, spot on. So I'm looking at the first paragraph, and I'm thinking, how more obvious can the dynamic of service to self be portrayed to humanity? You see wars being waged for profit, right? You're seeing legislation that benefits the wealthy. You can see it. It's becoming more and more obvious, and the two sides become more and more, in a sense, polarized. So you will be able to notice and see and awaken and say, hey, this is not what I meant. This is not the way I want my world to work. So in a sense, it shows us that this acceleration, or this further chaos that's happening, is happening for a reason. And the reason is that you stop for a second and pay attention. And instead of being led into believing that a war is just, or that your leaders have your own best interest at heart, stop for a minute and think what is really good for humanity. And that's not what's happening right now. However, in the last paragraph, the fact that groups are growing is quite amazing to me. And I think it started to really bloom since the beginning of the internet, where people are actually able to see, oh, there are other people who think like me, and they're in the other side of the world. And the groups have been growing and growing. And in the last retreat that we had for the Law of One, I was asking Gary, who's a director at LNL Research, um, have they noticed the growth of groups that are following the Law of One? And he said that the growth is just staggering. So more and more people are being tuned into the messages of service to others, service to Gaia, and all of that stuff. So that makes me really, really happy and hopeful.
Yeah, me too. And it's not just happening through LNO research, and it's not just happening through the Law of One. People are having their own spiritual awakenings through many different avenues, many different groups, many different individuals, and I think that's also a beautiful thing. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to just add, from when I see the second paragraph, in general, we see the peoples of your planet awakening in record numbers all over the globe. And I can just say, like, just from what I have seen, just personally, I would agree with that 100%, because as you mentioned, a lot of the things that we do see in the media is not necessarily reflective of what's going on a regular basis. It's not reflective of my neighbor asking me, do I know about breathing techniques? I would have never thought she would ask me about that, but she asked me about that, and I just gave her my Kriya Pranayama book. So I do think that is happening. And I just kind of, when I think back about just specific either systems or people that I've seen, like I think about personally, my father, for example, who I mentioned is I grew up, he's a Pentecostal bishop. And even now, he's even had a glass of wine before. And that would be something that would never happen. I never thought,
We're
my
always
sister
happy to
never,
see people drinking.
no, but it was just, if you drink,
I
you're
know.
going to hell. That was the message. And but he's even like he'll have a glass of wine on vacation. I'm just like, well, now we got to just let you try some of the greenery, let you try some of the trees.
You haven't done that yet, have you?
No, but we'll talk
Someday.
about that. We'll get off the line, but that's
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
someday, VP. No, I get what
but
you're saying, and for him, that's a big deal, and for you.
it's a big step, that's a big step. And I've just even seen, like, even just folks that was in our congregation, just as I see them and just talk to them, even those have changed. Think about when I was working in higher education, the different types of questions I would get from students and the type of students who would see me, to where when I left, believe it or not, there was a student who came into my office who was going to different psychic fairs in Minnesota, who had read the Law of One. So he would come to my office and we would talk about the Law of One, but this is a person who had already had read it, was just completely blew my mind. So to be able to see, like, the amount of people who are finding relevant spiritual information, they're seeking it, and they're finding it. And I think their perspectives are being loosened and perspectives are expanding depending on kind of where you are, your previous experiences.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and as we're going to see later on when we look at some other passages, everyone is on their own timetable, and it's really not good or appropriate to assume that people should be awakening at the same time or same way that one did, or that someone else's progress on their journey should be going faster or slower than you think they should. From creator's point of view, I'm sure they're doing just fine, just perfect with whatever they're doing. Beautiful comments. I think I would only add that, yeah, it's interesting that Quo said, we see the peoples of your planet awakening in record numbers all over the globe. And that was almost 20 years ago. I'd be curious what they're seeing these days. That would be interesting. As both of you are suggesting, I wouldn't be surprised if it was increasing for sure. Anybody have anything else to add before we change topics and look at other passage? Cool. Well, if you thought these passages were downers, let's take a look at a passage on awakening from the nightmare. I always have fun picking out these passages. This is from July 16th, 2005, and Quo said, by repetitive experiences in empire, your peoples have acquired habits of mind which mitigate against a full awakening into the awareness of self as the choice-making self. And so the tendency of your planetary population has repeatedly been to give its power away to those who are skilled at the processes of creating empire. Therefore, at this time, the plight remains to help those who have been repeatedly a failure at waking up to become a success this time. The great challenge then is to be a force in helping people to wake up without in any way infringing upon their free will. The choice to leave the precincts of fear and to step forward boldly into the unknown territory of unconditional love, release of judgment, and the embrace of all entities is formidable. The habit of doing so is not there. If you succeed, and we succeed in creating that 100th monkey effect, there is the opportunity in these next few years of awakening a larger number of your peoples to their possibilities and of bringing people fairly rapidly into a state where they are able to graduate. It is a possibility that has an increasing probability vortex. All of you and all of those who are awakening at this time have a tremendous potential to change the face of the planet and to help many, many entities take hold of who they truly are. We can only say with great humility that we are very glad to be a part of this effort, and we thank each of you who has dedicated the life experience to the awakening of Earth and its peoples. It truly does begin with each of you, and this is a time when a relatively small number of entities can make a pivotal difference in the harvest. For those who are not familiar with the 100th monkey effect that they were referring to in the second paragraph, the 100th monkey effect is a hypothetical phenomenon where new behavior or ideas spread rapidly by paranormal means once a critical number of individuals adopt it. It suggests that once this critical mass is reached, the new behavior or idea transcends the need for physical transmission and spreads through telepathy or some form of collective consciousness. It was based on observations of macaque monkeys on Kojima Island in Japan, washing sweet potatoes and water to remove sand. Not surprisingly, this has not been accepted by the scientific community, and I'm not here to really vouch for its veracity or not. Suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo has used that phrase many times because, as far as they can tell, yeah, it is a true thing that works, that in this case, a small number of entities can make a big difference. It doesn't have to be 51% of the whole planetary population to choose service to others as the path to progress on and become a social memory complex. It could be as small as 10%, and the numbers really don't matter. It's just that what they're saying is a relatively small number of people can make a big positive difference. And I find that super encouraging. Dr. J, any thoughts on anything?
Yeah, I got kind of two things. The first one is kind of just based off what you said. When you were talking about the 100 monkey effect, I would say that that's 100%. I would say it's true, and I would agree with you on that. But even when we and this makes me think about like the conversation we were having in our Heartland Law of One group, where we're talking about magic and the magic personality and things like that and energy. And even when you think about like the 100 monkey effect and how they were able to get the research of how it kind of spread, and you even think about, okay, the other monkeys that are spread too, what was their intention? If they're seeking to eat and having energy to be able, then they could be tuning in to a particular channel or energy to be able to recall and get that consciousness. So it made me think about some of the things that we're talking about in our Heartland Law of One group. But concerning the text you have on the screen, when I read this, I really started to think inwardly, like what have been like habits of mine that I have taken on personally, that could be mitigating like my awareness. And I think about like how I was taught as a kid, or and how I've developed and these practices of really designing my day around things that I have to do. It's not about necessarily, and I've changed it. I've been able to change it more, but it's really about, okay, how can I complete things? How can I check things off the checklist? And I heard somebody say, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And how can we then optimize our schedule about beingness? And I really, I literally this week, that's one of the things I'm going to be focusing on. I wrote it on my whiteboard. But like, what are ways that I can start to really optimize my schedule, not around efficiency or, complete, but being able to be present in beingness. And I started writing down a few things like, okay, well, if I can then, start to increase more, having more gratitude breaks, because there's certain things I got to do. I still got to pick up my kids at 2 o'clock, but while I'm riding my bike, that could then be a way for me to have gratitude, and then to be able to have that beingness in that moment of being able to be of service. So I really appreciated this because it really had me be able to turn on to my life to be able to say, there's ways that I could be optimizing my life and my schedule better than just than for efficiency, but optimizing it for beingness.
Beautiful. I love what you said about we're called human beings, not human doings. I've never heard anybody say that before, and I'm gonna have to steal that one. That's a really beautiful thing. Did you think of that yourself, or did you see that somewhere else?
Yeah, I heard somebody say we're meant to be, we're human beings, but I just added the human doings part. So yeah, take it. I mean, it's universal. We're a social memory complex anyway, so with shared memories.
Oh, I'll credit you for it if I remember and when I remember. But yeah, no, I think it's a beautiful thing. And it is one of many things that really cannot be emphasized enough that our friends in the Confederation have said many times about the importance of being rather than doing. And I think we've got another passage coming up where they elaborate on that. Neely, did you have any thoughts to add on anything?
Yeah, first I really love the how are we being more than rather than doing. That's just beautiful, a beautiful way to look at things. What really caught my eye in this passage is um, the challenge. How do you help people wake up without infringing on their free will? Because some people will just go down kicking and screaming and they don't want to wake up, but you are here to help them wake up. So one of those ways is exactly what Dr. J said, is being just, being compassionate, being in presence, and this can change the whole energy of a situation, of a town, of a country, right? And then the other one, I think, would probably be kind of like groups like yours, Jonathan, um, having a place for people who want to learn together and share from their hearts, is one beautiful way people will find you. And the other way is leaving those podcasts somewhere on YouTube for, the next seeker who will find them and gain something from them. So these are beautiful ways to do that without forcing yourself on somebody else. I remember when I first had my spiritual awakening and I started seeing things, and I was like, I had to tell my friends, hey, dude, how come you don't see it that way? And at some point, I calmed down and I realized that no, people who are not ready to see it, they won't see it. You cannot shove it down their throats. So I think our role is way more nuanced in the sense that, yeah, you have to put it out there. And if somebody is interested in asking, of course, be there to tell them and explain and help them out, but don't push it. Don't push it down anybody's throat.
Well said. Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, and I did want to note again, as far as Law of One study groups are concerned, our group is only one of many different study groups that are out there. And as Neely alluded to before, yeah, Illinois Research does sponsor in-person gatherings 3-4 times a year. They've done one near Seattle on the West Coast. They've got one coming up in Kentucky in another few weeks. They've done gatherings in Berlin and Prague as well. There was a meditation retreat in Colorado as well. So they're really great opportunities to meet other Law of One seekers in person. But there's so many more people that are not able to attend those events for any number of reasons. And I did want to let folks know these meetings on Zoom with study groups are not the same as those in-person gatherings, but in many ways they're as good and in some ways better. I've seen so many people form deep, lasting friendships and brothers and sisters of spirit through these Zoom gatherings that probably wouldn't happen at the in-person meetings, because these Zoom meetings happen every week or every couple weeks. So it gives you more time to really develop and build those relationships. So again, would really encourage folks to find a Law of One study group somewhere that you vibe with. Anybody have anything else to add on this passage before we look at something else?
I was just gonna say, I was when Nilly said, when she had her spiritual awakening, how excited she was and wanted to just go tell. And it was the same with me, especially when I found like the Law of One, and wanting to be able to tell, and like why don't, like, I remember just like being so excited going to tell people, and they're like, yeah, but and what, you like this? And just me just cannot believe, like, no, this is it. Like, this is what we've been looking for, right? This is, and then just couldn't. So I can really, I can understand that 100%, because I had that is same excitement, but then had to kind of let that balance out a little bit to be able to say, is to be able to have it in your tool belt. If somebody is of need, then it may be you can provide some of that information. So a certain aligning of paths, because I had that certain feeling once I was just like, I got it. We got it. This is it. This is the system. This is what I've been looking for. The densities, the octave, this is everything right here.
Yeah. It was the same for me. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm relatively new to the Law of One. In case any of our viewers didn't know this, I only discovered it about 5 years ago during the quarantine pandemic, like so many other people. But yeah, my experience was like yours, Dr. J. It was really eye-opening, huge escalation of any spiritual awakenings I had before that. And I had many. I must have timed it pre-incarnatedly to learn it this late in life, in my late 50s, because there were other experiences and I had along the way that helped prepare me for where I'm at now. So again, as you said, everybody's on a different timetable, not our place to I'm searching for the right word, to impose our timeline on somebody else. Any other thoughts, reflections on this screen before I change it? Cool. Well, let's take a look at a passage about awakening and choice. On April 18th, 2004, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, slowly, usually through a series of many incarnations, the third density entity begins to develop a core sense of self that returns with a bit more strength from incarnation to incarnation, so that there is not quite as much veil as there used to be, and at some point there is the experience of awakening. As entities begin to awaken, they begin to see something very important for third density work. That awakening begins when the realization occurs that the choice is not either or. The choices are infinite. When the viewpoint begins to expand, when the mountain first disappears and then reappears, then that third density soul begins to see that it is not a matter of becoming better at making choices. It's a matter of becoming more able to see the full range of choices, to see that it is not, for instance, a choice between belief in a creative principle and a belief in no creative principle. Rather, the choice is an infinite range of possibilities concerning the Godhead principle. There is the movement from a very firmly vectored angle of attack at things and making decisions to an increasingly loose, rounded, and multi-directional way of looking at the present moment. And as the third density soul begins in its maturity, it begins to realize the endless and infinite gradations of meaning that can be received when one peels away any present moment to see layer after layer after layer of insight, suggested, hinted at, sparkling on the wind, glistening in the trees, just waiting for the connection of heart and attention. The choice, then, is not simply a choice in a certain situation, but even more so, a choice of attitude, a choice of how to be, how to stand, how to express one's essence in the most full and honest way. I think this is the passage I was thinking of when you were talking, Dr. J, about us being human beings and not human doings. I really love this passage. And again, it cannot be emphasized enough that this passage came to us through the process of channeling. And when this person was saying these words, they were in a deep, deep meditative state. They really weren't aware of what words were coming out of their mouths as they were speaking them. They were somewhat aware, but it's like when you're kind of in that in between asleep and waking up mode where you're just kind of half asleep and half awake. And this person is just saying the words that are coming to them, like pulling a string, a thread on a ball of yarn or a spool of thread, and just kind of unwinding it to see where it goes. Again, beautifully poetic and inspiring. Neely, any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I have two themes that I want to focus on with this passage. The first one, when Kuo is talking about those choices, I see them as micro choices, right? In every situation in life, you will have an opportunity to make so many small choices turn right or turn left, say a kind word or say a harsh word. There are so many of those little choices that in its entirety, they form a big choice on which is emphasized in the last paragraph, the choice of how to be, the choice of, your attitude, who you really are. And with every micro choice, we discover more about ourselves, right? Because we are being presented with so many seemingly random, but really a myriad of events and catalysts and things that happen to us in life. And in each and every one of them, we have the opportunity to discover a little bit more about ourselves. And of course, at the end or during, just, allow the creator to learn more about itself. So this is one thing, like those micro choices that actually create one big choice. And the second one, while you were talking, Jonathan, I kind of saw an image of a person standing in a gallery and looking at a picture. And they're really focused at one little detail of the picture, but then they take a step back and they see more of the picture, and then they take a step back and see more of the picture. And this is also the way that our journey unfolds within an incarnation, because at the beginning, you go and somebody is cutting you in line at the store, and you are annoyed at how rude they can be to cut you in line. But then you look at them and you see that they really are stressed and they really are in a hurry somewhere. And if you took a step back, you knew that they have a sick child at home and they really need to get whatever they bought for their sick child at home. But then you take a step back and you see that this catalyst was put before you, so you will be able to make the choice of being generous about it or not being generous about it. And this thing is infinite. You can take as many steps back as you want to take. And that's the beauty of creation and the beauty of the opportunity to be here and to learn all those things about ourselves.
Yeah, so much appreciate that. I think the feeling that I'm getting from what you're saying and looking at the beginning part of this passage is what they seem to be describing a lot is what I might think of as spiritual maturity. After one has gone through enough incarnations, one starts to realize that there's different ways to look at everything, no matter what it is you're talking about. There's many different ways to look at it, including ways that seem polar opposite to each other, and that all of those ways have at least some amount of truth to them, even if it's a small amount. But I have found that something super helpful when I'm trying to remind myself of somebody who has very different perspectives and opinions to me, that there's lots of different ways to look at it, and there's some truth to their perspective as well. Dr. J, any thoughts, reflections on anything?
Yeah, I really like the Neely's micro choices example. I really like that. And then kind of accumulate into like one big choice, especially like in the 3D. And then it made me think about it's either the Journey of Souls book, those series, but it talks about, it's this one where the guy is doing his review life, and it makes me think about the micro choice. He was having a bad day. There was a woman that sat down next to him and he just said, just have a good day, and walked away. And as he was getting his review, that was something he had completely forgot, but that micro choice had a huge metaphysical impact, not only metaphysical world, but to that woman who actually needed that, because they talked about how that actually gave her the direction she needed to make an important choice in that in her life at that time. So I really, really like the micro choice example, because it has not only a huge metaphysical impact, but a huge impact of the person who could be uh receiving that. So I really, really, really like that. And then two, I've also because as I'm reading these, Jonathan, you always do such a great job of picking these passages, because it allows me to be able to internalize. And I've thought about, a lot of the frustrations and things that I've had in my life is because I haven't either been able to see my kind of uh, full variety of choices that I have, or potpourri of choices, as one of my professors would say. He use these weird words for stuff, potpourri of choices. and just not really being able to actually see them, but also realizing that maybe there's still experience that needs to happen to then realize that full set of choices and experiences. And that takes patience, spiritual practice, meditation, and so forth. So yeah, I don't, I feel like I'm talking for a while, but just those things I wanted to be able to mention.
Yeah, and every single bit of that I think was valuable to me and Neely, and hopefully to our viewers as well. Yeah, as you're speaking, it reminds me of my favorite movie that I've talked about many times on this podcast, which is Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray plays a very self-centered, narcissistic person who has to relive the same day over and over and over until he finally starts learning to think of others as much or more than himself in order to break that curse and move forward. And yeah, I think as you're saying, it just takes practice. It takes time and time again of having to experience these same situations before you learn how to look at it in a more, shall we say, enlightened way, a more loving, compassionate way to move forward. That does seem to be a real key to our spiritual evolution, not just in this incarnation, but in all the countless incarnations to come. Either of you have anything else to add on this passage? Any other thoughts on anything? Sounds good. Let's take a look at a couple passages on awakening to fourth density. On February 11th, 2007, Kuo said, "Your density has now become fourth density. Therefore, those third density entities who now walk the planet are more and more sensitive because they do not have the support of third density light, which hides most of the truth. Rather, they have fourth density light interpenetrating their third density understanding of their world, creating an environment where it seems, and indeed is happening, that wave after wave of truth and light and understanding is washing over this planet. The fourth density is the density of love, but it is also called the density of understanding. What is happening to entities now is that that which is in their thoughts and in their unexamined assumptions is being mirrored out to them in everyday life for them to see clearly. They no longer have so much of a cushion of easy untruth, because if they are awakening spiritually, there are forces within them that have determined and intended to challenge those unspoken assumptions which are not serving the greater good. So insofar as you as a third density entity are unawakened, you will simply find life getting harder. It seems that more extremes are taking place. You are not feeling as well. You lose more jobs. Whatever it is that you are working on in this life, there become problems with it that seem harder than they used to be. This is because you are not protected from your truth as you once were. Now entities who are awakened are experiencing the identical situation, are experiencing an increase in suffering, and are experiencing more difficult times. However, what they have on their side is that they have set their intention to serve others and to know the truth in order to serve others. This creates a fourth density support system that is powerful indeed and can take place of previous comforts of the unawakened. As I said before, it's really funny that they said this in 2007 because it seems so much more extreme than that now. It's as if they could have said this last week and we would say, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. I did want to point out for our viewers, if you are new to the law of one, the reason that they call densities first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth density, and so on, is that supposedly our universe, our galaxy is like a giant galactic clock face. And as our galaxy or our solar system moves through different portions of space-time, they move into areas where the light coming in is different. And so the difference that they're saying between third density and fourth density light is that it refers to the density of the light that we're experiencing. So apparently, starting in the 1930s all the way up to now, Earth has been increasingly bombarded, shall we say, by fourth density light, which, as they've said, is more dense than third density light. It holds more truth, more information in it. So as they're saying, things that we used to be able to sweep under the carpet or stuff into the closet or ignore, we're really not able to do that anymore. As fourth density comes in, we're really being forced to confront those things that we've pushed away. And we're being impelled more and more to choose between being thoughtful of others or just thinking of ourselves. Because fourth density is known as the density of unconditional love and understanding. Any thoughts to add on that, Dr. J?
Yeah, I would say like the two things. The first one is I just really love, and you got it highlighted, wave after wave of truth and light and understanding is washing over the planet. I just thought about a real cool wave pool with just love and light, just a really beautiful visual and words that they describe there. And then the second part is the third paragraph when it talks about how entities who are unawakened are going to have a difficult time. And even more so for the ones who are, but then the ones who are, that becomes the energy support system for the ones who are unawakened. I just thought that was beautiful. That it's not only is it cyclical, but it's providing like a bridge of support for those folks who are on the process of becoming awakened. And then it made me think about, okay, since since quote starts off, your density has now become fourth density. So if we're in fourth density energies, and then it made me think about, okay, how these spiritually fourth density energy support systems are connected. And they give kind of that example in the third passage. And I had looked this up. In session 47 in Ra, they talk about there are, shall we say, visual aids or training aids available in fourth density, which automatically aid the entity in polarization. And I wonder if it's these visualization of these fourth density support systems of energy that allow beings or developing systems to be able to spiritually develop. Because I always wonder, what are these visually support systems? And then it connected that when it talks about how the ones who are awakened, their hard times is also contributing and helping those ones who are unawakened, who are going through hard times.
Yeah, interesting that you had mentioned that. I had forgotten about that passage from Ra, and it certainly seems appropriate. Yeah, as you're speaking and as we're looking at this passage, I'm reminded I was in my previous life a high school biology teacher, just retired a couple of years ago. And yeah, Charles Darwin, according to Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest is not a matter of who's strongest or smartest or fastest or anything. It's about who's best able to adapt to changes. And for folks who are having a really difficult time with life right now, consider the possibility that you're still thinking in terms of third density, and you really need to change your way of thinking and being to adapt to those fourth density vibrations of love and understanding. There was a passage from Quo that I didn't include here, but I think is worth sharing. It was from May 25th, 2003. Quo said, "As your consciousness begins to feel comfortable swimming in the waters of unconditional love, so the bodies shall find themselves more and more able to enjoy fourth density vibration." Really short and sweet, but I love the visual of swimming in the waters of unconditional love, because those are the waves of fourth density light crash washing over the planet that we referred to. So learning how to think and be more in those terms is, I would say, a key to survival, shall we say, in the years to come. Neely, anything to add?
Yes, so you had mentioned at the beginning of this passage, Jonathan, that this was channeled in 2007, and it's almost as if it was yesterday, but we can also see some sort of progression, and that gives me hope that we're not stagnant, we're not stuck in a place. Things are getting seemingly worse outside in the chaotic world we live in. But we see the truth more, right? All of those things that we discover about people, that are coming out right now. These are the wave after wave of truth and light that are coming out. And the whole reason for that is to wake people up. I was also contemplating the last passage where they say that the entities who are awakened, they are experiencing the exact same hardship that the entities who are not awakened. However, there is a different slant that they give those experiences. So while an unawakened entity will see things that are happening as if they are happening to it, we'll see things happening from the point of view of a victim of why is this happening to me. The entity who is awakened will take a step back and look at these situations as, oh, okay, what is it trying to teach me? What is it telling me? And the whole demeanor of somebody who's more awakened compared to somebody who's not awakened is that they are more centered in themselves. And they are, in a way, more calm in face of the storm. So they are able to be that bridge to the entities who are in an earlier phase of their awakening, and to be that stabilizing point energetically and also physically as a body, just to help them go through all those difficulties. So this is, again, it's a sacred mission.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yeah, and again, I think it kind of calls back to what we were saying before, that there's many different ways to look at anything, even the ones that seem polar opposite. Reminds me of that meme of the two guys riding the bus on the highway that's going on a mountainside, and one person is staring at the side of the mountain, seeing a terrible thing, and the other person is on the other side of the bus looking out the window and seeing a beautiful vistas and thinking it's beautiful. You could put those captions as it's the end of the world as we know it, because it's true. It is. If it's feeling like this is like the end of the world, it is. You are literally living through the end of the world as we know it. And you could see that as a terrible thing, but you could also say it's a beautiful thing because it's the end of third density Earth, and it's the birth, the beginning of fourth density Earth, of beauty, of love and understanding. So you can look at it both ways, and they're both true. I think you can say. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this, or any other memes that seem appropriate to share? Sounds good. Let's see. I think I have another passage on this subject, and this is from November 27th, 2002. Quo said, "The harvest can truly be greatly increased at this time because so many entities here are just a tiny step from awakening, so that we feel that there's a real possibility that working increasingly in harmony, light centers such as this one and all positively oriented groups upon your sphere may begin to look less like solitary lighthouses and more like big cities. The grid of fourth density may be seen as formed by the joined hands of all positive people and all joined hearts as well. In terms of aiding your planet, the seeking entity may look at the globe and behold many places where the life forces are weak, places that are barren and unfruitful. These are places where there needs to be a strengthening, or a tweaking, as this instrument would say, of the grid. Entities may at any time choose to become radiators of unconditional love to the grid simply by intending to do so and moving into a state of meditation. The process of sending this light forth is one of intending to." Beautiful passage. And yes, our friends in the Confederation have made many references to us being lighthouses, us being radiators of light, of every second that we're alive, of channeling prana or chi or intelligent energy or creator's love through our bodies and energy centers and sending them out into the rest of the world like a lighthouse. And they've made references to a light grid that surrounds the planet that is helping fourth density form. Beautiful visuals here. Neely, any thoughts on anything?
Yes, I'm just, basking in the glow of this beautiful image of everybody holding hands and forming this beautiful light grid around the earth. I wanted to suggest, if people really want to take part of being those radiators of unconditional love, just a small practice that I do every morning is I will quiet my mind, and I will send a little prayer to all of the dark places on the earth. Send them love, send them light, and just be with that for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's already enough to enhance the love that exists on earth.
Well said. Yeah, somebody posted a question on our Facebook group the last day or two asking about meditation, saying that they're having a hard time kind of like emptying their minds of thoughts and didn't understand why emptying your mind of thoughts is an important part of your spiritual growth. And as I and other people said, there's many different forms of meditation, and it doesn't have to be sitting in a lotus position trying to empty your minds of thoughts. As I think you're suggesting, I often use meditation as a way of sending love and light to Mother Earth, and that's different. I'm not trying to empty my mind of thoughts. If I'm anything, I'm really just trying to open up my green ray. I'm really trying to open up my heart chakra as much as possible, unblock the other chakras, and just consciously be sending that love and light from Creator to Mother Earth and to all creation. And that's a valid form of meditation as well. Dr. J, any thoughts on anything?
Yeah, just something real short. I just thought it was, again, just beautiful, becoming radiators of unconditional love to the grid. I mean, that's just so beautiful. That's another thing. I wrote that on my whiteboard too, because there's certain things that, I just, when you're working, sometimes you can use quotes like that, and that just becomes something I can look at as a reminder of what energy that I'm sending off. Am I in the point where I'm sending love and light, or am I kind of like, I don't feel like doing this right now? So that was something that I thought was just really just a beautiful visual of, like you said, sending that, just being radiators of unconditional love. So yeah, that was the only thing I had to contribute.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Do you guys do group meditations in your Heartland Law of One study group?
No, we don't do group meditations. And I'll add, because I know Neely had added, but even like after, during my morning meditations, I meditate every morning. And Jonathan, sometimes I'll do my magic practices a few days a week as well. But following whatever I'm doing, following that, I connect my spine to the earth, and then like spend time transferring that energy from that balanced energy, because before I'm at least balanced. I've cleansed myself spiritually, and then it's that finished product, that refined energy after my meditation. That's what I'm sending to the earth, and I'm just like breathing, connected, umming, for a few minutes. That way, that's there, and that's been kind of my consistent, ongoing practice of connecting with the earth and being able to kind of deposit those fourth density energies into the grid.
Beautiful practice. Yeah, all makes sense. And I think, as was said at some point in our discussion on our Facebook group, I mean, literally anything can be a form of meditation. Walking in nature can be a meditation. Playing music, painting picture can be meditation. Listening to music can be a form of meditation. Again, there's many different kinds of meditation for many different purposes. So we did a podcast episode on meditation. If you are interested in learning more about it, check it out. Otherwise, why don't we go ahead and take a look at a passage on, since you brought this up, Awakening to Magic. On February 6, 2003, Quo said, "The truth of enslavement to fear and suffering and other people's wars, and the possibility of choosing instead empowerment, freedom, and the spiritual path, is one which lies directly in the path of every day and of every man or person. It is not necessary to be extreme or inhuman in order to become an entity that truly has a magical personality. Rather, it is a matter of moving through an awakening process and becoming directly aware of the self. Once this point has been reached, and this point is very realistically expected to be reached by one who attempts it, the universe opens and the impossible becomes possible. The greatest amount of effort for one who is attempting to make this change is the beginning, where it is in the beginning where one must express the faith of that which has not yet occurred. Such a beautiful passage. Again, we could probably spend 2 hours just talking about this one, but for those who are new to the Law of One, yeah, they do actually talk quite a bit about magic and something called the magical personality, because we're all inherently magical beings, which makes sense. If you accept the Law of One, then we are all the one infinite creator. We are all sparks of the one infinite creator, which makes you an inherently magical being. As they're saying, you're already magical. It's just a matter of whether you want to develop your magical abilities. And what I believe they're suggesting here is just make that part of your awakening process of discovering who you are on the deepest level. And you will find that, as the entity known as Hagrid said, "You're a wizard, Harry." Any thoughts on that, or any other pop culture references you want to drop, Dr. J?
Not on You're a Wizard, Harry. But I, I'll say
Or
that,
Hermione?
when I did spend my time in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, that was one of the things that they kind of said from the beginning was, this whole process is about self-awareness, and to be able to refine what they was like, kind of reference from lead to gold, and basically turning your lead body into a refined light body, and the process in which you do that. And it was for me, it was just it was really helpful to, because like that first maybe like year and a half, you're only just doing like the LBRP, and you're just really just cleansing things out. But during that process, a lot of things that I didn't necessarily realize that had was shaping my perspective of work, or even I would even say at the times of even imposter syndrome, or even me being in that new environment of being this new VP and being the youngest one. Things that during this process of cleansing and self-awareness really help be able to be able to balance out, to see where they were coming from. So those would be the only things that I would be able to mention. And then as I was even thinking about, the last thing I'll say is what was cool when I was out there, even those magical practices, it was cool to see that some of them were the exact same of what the indigenous people on that land were doing. So like those Shetty Shakaween, that's the land that Winona State was situated on. And I had the opportunity to work with one of the elders there of the land. And we start kind of talking about spiritual things, like even the different colors of the LBRP or the LBRH. That wouldn't be their language form. But as we start talking about movements and rotation and colors and directions you're drawing these things, a lot of similarities and parallels, which I thought was just beautiful, of how this knowledge and information really is universal.
Yeah. Yeah, I need LBRP being short for Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, correct?
Correct. Lesser banishing
Something
ritual
that
of the
has been,
pentagram, and then the LBRH is the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram, and that's when you're dealing with more of the planetary energies that you're balancing.
nice. Yeah, this has been mentioned a fair bit in the Rock Contact, and Don himself was very much into white ritual magic as well, and the Order of the Golden Dawn. So for folks who are interested, check it out. Otherwise, we'll probably have a podcast on magic sometime in the future, and Dr. J is probably going to be a panelist on that episode if I can look into the future and see. Neely, did you have anything to add on this?
Not much, because I'm not that experienced with magic, but if I understand correctly, the definition of magic would be affecting reality through consciousness. And it seems that in order to do that, you definitely need to learn and understand yourself better. To me, everything that's happening around me is some kind of magic. So,
For sure. Yeah, I believe the definition that's been used more than a few times in Chandler's sessions, definition of magic being the ability to change consciousness at will, which really doesn't sound all that esoteric, but it is pretty much what they mean. And they have said some of the most powerful magic happens when you change your response from what used to be. Like if you get triggered by somebody or something, that seems to happen a lot. And your normal automatic response is something hateful or judgmental or fearful or angry. And anytime one deliberately changes their response to a response more of love and understanding, they said that's magical. And that's some of the most powerful magic that you can do. And I have most definitely found that to be true from my own experiences as well. It's a beautiful thing. Anyone else have anything to add on this passage before we look at our last topic, last passages? Sounds good. Let's take a look at a few passages on what could be described as alarm clocks. On November 5th, 2000, Quo said, "The very first arena of change for the spiritual seeker is the alarm that awakens the spirit. We do not know any way to influence the timing of when that alarm clock goes off for each individual spirit. And so we would ask that this particular concern for the self or for any other self be removed from the arena of choice and change. Trust the self to know when it is time to awaken, and trust that self again and again when it triggers an urgency for change. For there are, as we have said, these posts or stanchions that are part of the structure of each incarnation that have been carefully set in place to cause a turn here and a swing there and a turn and a roll here and there. Sometimes these changes in direction seem to be coming from the blue, and yet they have been carefully placed and are doing what they should do in order to keep you pointed, to follow your original analogy, not to Chicago, but to the issues of your incarnation and to the services which you wish to offer." I believe in this passage earlier, they were talking about different routes, like if you wanted to go from Louisville to Chicago, for example. There are many different ways to get there. There's no one correct way. And I guess while I'm looking at it, the word stanchions, for those of you who are not familiar with it, I had to look that up. They are like those posts that have the retractable band on them that they use in banks or airports to kind of direct people here and there, direct traffic. And what a fascinating way to use that in this particular context. There was another passage on February 7th, 1999. Quo said, "No two entities have the same clock setting. There is no one time for spirits within bodies to awaken. For each seeker, that time of awakening is perfect and right, although it may not seem right to others. It always shall come to the one who is ready to deal with the implications of the new inner birth that constitutes the awakening into realization of the self as a spirit independent of space and time, but wholly dependent upon love and light. For each is love and light, yet each also transduces love and light as it streams from the infinite creator into the earth plane. And so each of you, no matter the age or any details about the person, each who is awakening is a receiver and a transmitter of vibration." I believe Dr. J mentioned earlier the work of Dr. Michael Newton in the Journey of Souls books, where he recorded experience of people under hypnotic regression of not just past incarnations, but about the process in between incarnations, the post-incarnation review, the sharing of experiences with others, the preparation for the next incarnation. We did actually record a podcast episode on Journey of Souls with someone who has actually been trained as a counselor in Newton's techniques. And by the time this episode uploads, I believe the Journey of Souls episode will have been uploaded as well. But yeah, it is fascinating to contemplate that everything that happens to you in this incarnation, you planned yourself with your higher self to happen as it did to help you along the way. And again, part of that included putting in posts or stanchions or markers along the way to help you trigger your awakening whenever you're ready for it. And others may be part of that or may not. Any thoughts on anything here, Neely?
Yes, it's really interesting because if you look back at your life with that in mind, you will be able to identify where those posts were placed in your life, or those stanchions, really nice word, where they were placed in your life and how they directed your life into a different place. I can attest for myself that I've had a bunch of alarm clocks go off, and in some of them I immediately hit the snooze button. I was like, I'm not ready. Let's move on. And every time the alarm clock became louder and louder until, I couldn't ignore it anymore. So that was that. And it's also, I really like the second part of the passage, or the second passage, where they say no two entities have the same clock setting, because it really speaks to be compassionate to your fellow human beings, be compassionate to your sisters and brothers who may not see the world the way you see it. Okay, that's great. You're awakened and you know that you're more than your physical body. You know that you have a purpose, but your friend or your mother cannot see it. It's okay. That means that the alarm clock did not go off for them, and that's okay. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's like everything else. It's a bit of a balancing act between what's appropriate or not to share with someone that may or may not help with their spiritual awakening. As you're saying, and as I think we're all agreeing, every soul is on their own individual timetable, and it's not for us to impose a timetable on them that we think is better for them. But I don't think that means that you never talk about spiritual stuff or you never talk about the law of one. I think there's a way to. I think they use the metaphor for Johnny Appleseed. They have said many times you can drop seeds of insight into conversations, and if people pick up on it and want to follow up on it, they can do that. And if they don't, then that's okay. You can let that go too. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah, I have two things. The first one is the first thing that really comes to me is just literally last week I was having I would say kind of a spirited debate. One of my neighbors who's I would say I'm really good friends with, but he's very 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 religious and really believes of course nothing's wrong with that, but believe you should only really be reading the Bible. So the law of one would be out of that scope. And we were, I would say, probably for about a hour and a half, having a very, very, we were laughing, having fun, having espresso martinis, um, non-caffeinated because it was late, of course. Um, but we got to the point to where I kind of just told him, because it wasn't about me trying to convince him. It was just more that there's other things that can be read or should be considered, maybe when you're looking at spiritual perspectives. And that was kind of my message, and his was something that. And we got to a point to where, I just told him, he was like, one day you may actually. He's telling me this. One day you're going to finally realize, and you're going to come along. I'm like, you know what? Whether that day does not happen, I just care about just the time that we have right now, man. We're having fun. We're here. We're in the present. We're having fun. We're intense. And I just thought about, like, the stanchions part really came up for me, because I'm like, not only does he allow, I can be a stanchion in his life, but he can be a stanchion in my life, because now I have an expanded perspective of what other people feel about certain things that I hadn't had before, previous into to that situation. So that was extremely helpful. And then the other thing that I had was, um the last part is, each is awakening is a receiver and a transmitter of vibration. And I just really thought about, what are those things that I'm consuming? What are those things that I'm receiving? And am I receiving it, out of the days that I have, the information I'm receiving? If I break that down, is it high vibrational stuff? And I had to really think, because even when we came to that at the Law of One retreat, where I had the pleasure of meeting Neely, And we kind of had that time where we just released. And I just remember just like really, really crying because I had been reading and thinking about so much stuff that's happening in the Middle East, the famine and all these things, and become so emotional that I had to then really back up to really, think about myself, like, just for me to be aware of what's happening, I don't need this level of consumption. And I had to really kind of think about what that really meant to figure out what then vibration is my output. So after that, that was a really good thing for me because I didn't realize when we were in Seattle, I had so much built up energy from that, but then had to realize it was my consumption, and I could maybe do some tweaking to then make sure that I don't maybe need to consume as much of it to make sure I'm aware of what's going on politically and what's happening.
For sure. Yeah, I think it would be fair to say, and the entity known as Quo has said many times, that the best way to change the outer world is really, in fact, to change the inner world. And that a big part of our spiritual awakening is doing the inner work, or the shadow work, as it's been described in other contexts. But yeah, looking inside yourself, again, find out who you are on the deepest level. And for most people, that brings up some very emotional experiences or perhaps traumatic experiences. And yeah, that release of tears can be a beautiful thing. I have done it many, many times and always feel like it's a gift to myself and maybe to others who appreciate the vulnerability and encourages them to do likewise. Beautiful sharing from everyone. Again, I did have a couple other last passages to look at on this subject. Anybody have any thoughts to share on the screen before I change it? Cool. On July 16th, 2005, Quo said, efforts such as this group's Gaia meditations occurring daily are one such crystalline effort which has indeed, over a period of years, begun to affect the planet. Its choice of a non-location oriented, daily witness to prayer, and meditation on behalf of the planet has created an energy which is common to many points upon, or shall we say, close to your planetary surface, which are yin rather than yang, shall we say, in their energy focus, which have represented or created the opportunity for, shall we say, the infection of larger groups of entities by enthusiasm felt by individuals in becoming a part of the Gaia meditation. These non-local points of love call in a way we cannot describe rationally to the awakening processes within those who have not yet made their choice, acting as what this instrument would call snooze alarms, to bring them to some point of increased wakefulness where they are more close to being able to see what this instrument would call the bigger picture of who they are and why they wish to wake up and what they wish to do when they wake up. And then on July 31st, 2007, Quo said, the prayers, hopes, and dreams of those who visualize peace in the Middle East, and indeed in all regions of your war-torn globe, are very effectual in a certain way. They are not designed to intervene in the worldly affairs of entities who do not wish to become aware of the love and light of the one infinite creator. They are designed to alert the consciousness of the universe, of all creation, and especially of those forces of unconditional love who are the objects of those prayers, to the fact that there is distress among the nations, distress in people's hearts, and a yearning for peace, beauty, truth, and a life lived in compassion, comradeship, and contentment. These prayers are having the effect of awakening the planet at the grassroots level of ordinary people. Many are awakening at this time because of the fervent prayers of all those who offer their deepest beseechments to the one infinite creator in their own ways. For those who are not familiar with the Gaia meditations referenced in the first passage, Gaia meditations is actually something that Jim and Carla started after the 9/11 attacks in New York City on 2001. They asked Quo, like a couple weeks after that had happened, what they could do to help. And they did suggest group meditations for Mother Earth. So yeah, if you go to the LNL research site shown on your screen and click on the Connect tab and scroll down a bit, you'll see Gaia meditations in the bottom. And it happens every day around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to be a part of that, wherever you are, we do this as part of our Tuesday Zoom sessions with the Seattle group, but you don't have to be part of any study group. If you pray for Mother Earth in this way at that time, it all gets added together. Or it could be a different time as well. It is part of what they've referred to as the law of squares, or the doubling effect, where each person who joins doubles the power of the group in a logarithmic way. That is illustrated by the graphic on your screen that I'm not going to bother describing. You can look at it for yourself. Suffice it to say, adding one more person to a group of 9 just doesn't increase the power of that by 1 bit. It doubles the power that the group of 9 had before it. So it's can be a powerful thing. So again, you don't have to live in the same place. You don't have to be doing it at the same time. Anytime you're meditating for Mother Earth, you're adding to the power of that prayer. Any thoughts, reflections on anything else here, Dr. J?
Yeah, I just thought, I mean, the first paragraph, these non-local points of love call in a way we cannot describe rationally to the awakening process. That just kind of, that's just so good, because if they can't even come up with words, and they come up with words for everything, right? So
They came up with
really,
stanchion, for Christ's sake. Nobody uses that word. I've never seen that word before. Sorry.
well, you know what was interesting when I first saw the stanchion, I used to think about my nightclub days, because we would put them out to direct people certain places. But I just thought that was like really just beautiful about how they talk about how these non-local oriented points have such a profound impact. And then I also start thinking about, okay, what does that mean then for the people who are doing it at that same time? What does that mean for then their local locations, for the people, like for the people who are actually doing it? Because I can even recall when they were in the Law of One, where they were looking for a new place, right? When they were looking for a new place to have the channelings, and they were talking about cleaning, and Ryan ended up mentioning, well, make sure you either ask this localized place. I forgot the exact word, but basically asking if you can bring that energy in there, right? So I think about even the impact that it has on the physical locations of the people that are providing these energy inputs into the earth, and how that then spans across. And especially the reason this becomes important, and when we moved from Wisconsin, we ended up moving to Florida. We ended up building our home, and it was built sight unseen. So as it was built, it was a process of, like, we would come and visit, they would take pictures, we would send energies, like there's prayers written in our house that we had did. So there was really, I really took that part serious about building a connection with the physical space. And I think about, like, even with what that means in regards to a larger connection of, even when we had that worst hurricane, which people were checking on, unfortunately, our family and our space was okay. So I just went on to think about not only like how it's important to, give love and life and contribute to the earth, but I do think there is an impact on the local physical parts of those people who are doing these spiritual things.
That's beautiful. I had not thought of that, but yes, that makes perfect sense. It does remind me of a question that does come up from time to time in our study groups, which is something along the lines of, are you violating the free will of somebody by praying for them, by sending them love and light, without them necessarily asking for it or giving their permission? And I think the answer has been very clear that no, it's not. Just as they're saying in the second passage, where they said, like, when you're praying for peace in the Middle East or anywhere else, these prayers aren't designed to intervene in the worldly affairs of entities who do not wish to become aware of the love and light of the one infinite creator. People can choose whether or not they want to accept or receive that love of light, but you can send it everywhere on the planet if you want, and we do. We do that in our group Gaia meditations all the time, and we just trust that that love and light goes wherever it's needed to whoever is open to it. Neely, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I loved what both of you said. Dr. J talking about the connection to a physical place that is held with presence and prayer. That's a really interesting facet of this whole thing of prayer and meditation for Gaia. It almost comes to me as a picture of we are all one. And, by the little points in the one that are praying for everything to come up, the whole, the global, the entire thing will go up in vibration. So even if, somebody didn't ask for your prayer and they want to stay miserable, or their higher self decided that they need to have the experience of war right now, everything will be alleviated a little bit. So when I send my prayers to Gaia, when I send my prayers to the war-torn places, the prayer will elevate people a little bit so they suffer a little less. And joining all of our prayers around the globe will elevate Gaia and everybody's suffering to a slightly higher place. And I think that's all there is to it.
Beautifully said. I got nothing to add to that. Yeah, beautifully said. I believe these are actually the last two passages that we're going to look at here. Does anybody have any thoughts, reflections on anything they wanted to end before we start wrapping things up?
Yes, I just wanted to say that again, and we said it throughout the podcast, even though things may look grim right now, I want people to keep their faith and I want people to maintain their hope, because we are doing right now the biggest job our eternal soul ever did. We're helping a planet to rise to the fourth density and hopefully to the positive fourth density. So let's just keep that in mind. This is our goal, and this is the North Star that should lead us.
Beautifully said. I was hoping to end the podcast on a downer, but I think you're really lifting us up there. I appreciate that for sure. There was that passage we looked at early in the episode where they talked about this is the reason that you chose to incarnate at this time. Specifically because, as you said, and has been, quote, has said many times, it's not by accident. This third density experience is designed to appear negative. It is designed so that you really notice negative things before positive things. And it's designed that way in order to test your ability to choose love and unconditional love in spite of overwhelming catalysts that is trying to get you to be fearful and angry, afraid. So yeah, anyone who's watching this, anyone who's experiencing life on earth right now, you are a spiritual badass. You are, yeah, to be able to experience all of this stuff and still be able to open your heart and love, unconditional love for others, including the ones you have the most issues with. It's great stuff. It's pure gold. Dr. J, anything to add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I would just say kind of like you already, like you all have both said, like if you came here, it's very courageous. It's courageous to come here, to be able to be somewhere where you can be chilling in a high vibration, spiritually just relaxing, and to be able to come to a space where shit is gonna be hard. That's courageous. That's courageous. So in this process, make sure that you not only rest, you take care of yourself, but you pat yourself on the back. If it's ice cream for you, get you some ice cream. If you shouldn't be eating it, then, but do what's good for you in the context of wellness, for what your definition of wellness is, because it is courageous of us coming here. And I'm sending you everybody who's listening love and light.
Well said. And if anybody gives you a hard time about having an extra ice cream cone, tell them it is literally the end of the world as we know it. We are experiencing it. So cut yourself some slack and have a fucking cookie, for God's sake. That's what I've been telling myself, at least. Sounds good. So let's take a look at where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons that we might remember from our experience here? I've got 7 for you this time, more than usual. Viewers, don't worry about trying to remember all of them or any of them, just hopefully any 1 or 2 that resonate with you. But I would think, for one thing, know that yes, a great awakening is happening on the planet as humanity is adapting to 4th density light and vibes, and that's a good thing. And that 4th density is indeed the density of love and understanding. So as we said, the more you learn to swim in the waters of unconditional love, the more your body will adjust to 4th density vibrations. And yes, that we have experienced this continuous cycle of rising towards the light and falling back in fear. Anything you can do to break that cycle by within yourself, not allowing yourself to fall back into fear, is a good thing for the planet. And yes, there is something called the 100th monkey effect, where it only takes a small number of people, or maybe one person even, can make a big difference in the world. And that, yes, you can be a lighthouse and you can join the light grid just by being yourself, whoever you are on the deepest level, radiating the love and light of the one infinite creator as you experience it to others. You are a magical being, Harry or Hermione, and that everyone has a different alarm setting to wake up, and respect that. Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, Nayli? Any last thoughts, reflections on the topic?
Yes, I want to emphasize number 7. Everyone has a different alarm setting to wake up, because I've seen a lot of what you call spiritual ego with people who look at people who are not yet as advanced and awakened as they are as something less than, and that is so not the truth. Those people are experiencing what they need to experience right now, just the same as you are experiencing what you need to experience right now. So let's be patient.
Beautifully said. Dr. J?
Yeah, I like number 5, be a lighthouse, join the light grid. And what I take from that is, there's, of course, there's a large light grid, but there's all these different avenues that one can take to be able to contribute energy to a light grid. For you, that may be through your music, that may be through your art or poetry, but whatever that is, be able to do it. But I think it also, if you can do something that is not only in line, but something that's new for you, something that's maybe going outside of going outside of the box to be able to contribute. Because I think that also provides not only added vibrations with intention, but your energy not presently being there in that particular light space, I think helping and enhances that overall new path or new space to get to that particular grid.
As the wise person once said, we're called human beings, not human doings. You lighten the light grid just by being who you are. So beautiful. The more I say that, the more I enjoy it, the more I'm going to remember that. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. As always, I learned a lot from both of you, and viewers, I did want to let you know, if you enjoyed hanging out with Dr. J and want to learn a little bit more about him, got a little thing called Consci Rise. Dr. J, you want to let our viewers know a little bit about what this is, what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a company called Consci Rise, which stands for Consciousness Rising. We're a community and platform for spiritual and conscious growth. And one of the things that we're combating, since there's been so many scams in the spiritual industry and the conscious industry, all the practitioners we have on there have all been vetted. They've been interviewed, and you'll find a lot of our people in our Law of One community who are practitioners on there. So if you actually offer spiritual-based services, we'd love to be able to have you on there if you're looking for a spiritual community where we'll have different experiences. So we just concluded a 1 to 5 customizable fasting experience, which we did in community. So we're always looking at ways in which we can do different spiritual, conscious-based things in community together. The community is free, so we're not going to know underlying parts, but it's all about being lighthouses and us being able to get on the grid together. So we'd love to be able to have you and your energy, and community.conscirise.com. Thank you, Jonathan, for letting me share.
So beautiful. Thank you for that, and blessings to all you continue to do in service to others. Neely, did you want to let folks know a little bit about your archetypical mind study group and how they can be a part of that if they want?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. So, the archetypical mind is considered one of the most complex topics in the Law of One teachings. And there is a little bit to be said about the archetypes of the mind that Ra had shared, but not a lot about the archetypes of the body and the archetypes of the spirit. We are facilitating a study group. We study the archetypes together, and we're trying to do this from a non-intellectual, more experiential way, because the archetype will say something different for every student that learns them. Then we're trying to facilitate that experience, that special, unique experience for every student. We meet every other Monday. Everybody is welcome. And if you want to join our group, please send an email to seattleloveone@gmail.com and we will have you with open arms.
So nice. Yeah, and if you want to see recordings of their episodes, go to YouTube and just search for Archetypical Mind Study Group, and you should see something like what we got on the page show up. Thank you for all you continue to do in service to others, Neely. Want to thank you both for being here. As you know, of course, we're not done yet because I didn't just ask you here to talk about spiritual awakenings. I really meant to have you here mainly for the pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we'd like to do at the end of our podcast, just to end our otherwise spiritual, serious discussions on a fun note, and maybe look for Law of One connections to pop culture. So since today's episode was about awakening, seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on movies where sleeping and waking up was a central theme. Specifically, these three movies in particular. Dr. J. Neely, have you seen any or all of these three movies?
I think I saw Sleepers.
Did you? Nice. That's the one I was assuming was least familiar to folks. Have you seen any of these, Dr. J?
Sleeping Beauty, and then I think Passengers, but I know I haven't seen Sleeper, but maybe Passengers.
Nice. Sleeper was a slapstick comedy made by Woody Allen back in the early 1970s before he had that creepy thing going on with his stepdaughter, which we may or may not get into here. But suffice it to say, I'm going to ask you three multiple choice questions about these three movies. See how many you can answer correctly. You are watching this on the video sometime in the near or distant future. Go ahead, say your answers out loud. We can hear you through time space. Are you guys ready for your first question?
We are.
So, what was the original name for the princess in Disney's Sleeping Beauty movie from 1959? Was it A, Aurora, B, Briar Rose, or C, Aschenputtel?
I would go with B.
Nice. Dr. J?
I don't know why. I'll say A. I don't know why I'm thinking A.
Nice. You're both correct. The correct answer is A and B. There's been versions of the Sleeping Beauty story that were published by Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm. Perrault called his heroine Aurora, while the Brothers Grimm referred to her as Briar Rose. And in the Disney movie, she gets both of those names, I think. Aschenputtel apparently was Cinderella's original name in the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales, which are horrifically more brutal and violent than the Disney movies, I believe, if you ever look at the original stories. Are you ready for your second question?
Yes.
This is about Sleeper. Sleeper was about a guy, Woody Allen plays a guy who is like he's a health food store owner or something. He goes in the hospital for a routine operation, but for some reason gets cryogenically frozen for like 200 years, wakes up in some dystopian future, and hilarious things ensue with Diane Keaton. So the question is, which science fiction writer did Woody Allen consult with for his 1973 movie Sleeper? Was it A, Isaac Asimov, B, Arthur C. Clarke, C, Philip K. Dick, or D, Harlan Ellison?
I'll say B.
Good guess.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Good guess. Neely?
Um, just for the fun of it, I will say A.
Nice. Correct answer is, in fact, A. Woody Allen was trying to make his movie as scientifically accurate as he could, writing a slapstick comedy. So he did have an informal meeting with Isaac Asimov to discuss it, but he was not like staying on as a consultant. He was too busy writing books. For anyone who knows Isaac Asimov, he's well known for writing the Foundation trilogy and the book I, Robot, similar to the Will Smith science
Oh.
fiction movie that has that same title. He's written hundreds of more books. I think I wrote a book about, he wrote as a kid about jokes or something like that. Great writer. Are you guys familiar with the other folks on the choices? Do you know Arthur C. Clarke, Philip K. Dick, Harlan Ellison?
I don't know Harlan Ellison, but I did read some stuff from Arthur C. Clarke, and I think Philip K. Dick, the movie Blade Runner was made
Yeah.
after one of his novels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Philip K. Dick specialized in like dystopian future books, many of which have been made into movies, including Blade Runner, Minority Report, Total Recall, The Adjustment Bureau.
Wow. All of those. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're great movies too. Very popular, I think, with Law of One folks. Harlan Ellison, I think, wrote a lot of books also. He's probably most known for writing the script for the Star Trek original series episode called The City on the Edge of Forever, which is considered by many to be one of the best episodes, certainly from the original series, if not of all the Star Treks. Although his version of it was very different from the one that ended up getting made. His was a lot darker and grittier. Arthur C. Clarke, which books of his have you read, Neely?
Nothing comes to mind right now. Mention a few and I'll tell you if I read them.
Childhood's End,
Nope.
2001, Space Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Highly recommend Childhood's End. I haven't read a lot of science fiction, but there was a time in my early 20s where I was into it and read Childhood, and big Law of One connections in it, if no one's ever read. It is about a peaceful alien invasion of planet Earth by entities who call themselves overlords and are just trying to help with humanity's evolution. And as it turns out, new generation of children are being born with telepathic or psychic abilities, kind of like indigo children as we think about them. And eventually this next generation, the Childhood End represents them becoming, they don't use the word social memory complex, but yeah, that is the intention, that they become a group mind. I remember reading in my early 20s, and they used a metaphor for oneness or group minds by looking at planet Earth from outer space. What seems like separate continents, once you look below sea level, you realize that they're all connected as one mass. And that was one of the alarms that went off for me in my spiritual awakening. When I read that, I thought, yes, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. 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 Highly recommend it. Otherwise, are you ready for your last question? In the 2016 movie Passengers, the Jennifer Lawrence character has the same name as which Disney character? Is it A, Aurora, B, Ariel, or C, Anastasia?
I'm guessing A.
It's a good guess.
I'll just say B just to be different.
Nice. Good guess. As it turns out, the correct answer is indeed A. Because if anybody hasn't seen the movie yet, it's about a ship that is taking people to a distant solar system to start colonizing a new planet after Earth has been destroyed. But because it's a 120-year journey or something, they're put into sleep pods to sleep until they're ready to wake up. And for whatever reason, the Chris Pratt character, there was a mechanical malfunction on the ship and he ends up being woken up and he's by himself. Everyone else is still in their sleep pods and he tries to like live alone, but he realizes he can't do this and he starts going crazy and he discovers the Jennifer Lawrence person and looks at her little biography, which he has access to. He sees her as a soulmate, kindred spirit, and takes it upon himself to wake her up from her sleep. And although they do fall in love and they do live happily ever after, yeah, she was named Aurora because she was kind of like a sleeping beauty who awoken. The movie got criticized for its admittedly creepy undertones of his violating her free will by waking her up before she was really meant to wake up. So there's some good Law of One connections in that story for sure. Does that sound familiar, Dr. J? Do you remember seeing that?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It does. As you're talking, I'm remembering seeing it. So yeah, yeah.
In spite of those somewhat creepy undertones to it, I would say it is a good movie and it is worth seeing. And Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt, of course, are both great actors. And because they bring so much of their personality and their takes in the characters, and they do genuinely fall in love with each other, even after she realizes that he woke her up before her time. They do eventually end up falling in love and living out the rest of their lives together. So,
Yeah, I would have
not a
said,
downer movie.
I think I would have said, put me back to sleep so I can see who else is on that other planet. Then I can have a more conscious-based decision. Let me see what the options are. We just talked about all your choices. So you limited my choices by waiting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I went back and read the Wikipedia plot summary, because I saw this some years ago, I forgot. Yeah, he tells her, or she finds out through the robot bartender that he actually woke her up, and she is understandably horrified and doesn't want anything to do with them. But they do eventually discover that the ship was hit by some asteroid. That's what caused the mechanical malfunctions that kind of spiraled down to the sleep pods, and eventually he discovers that there is there is a way for her to go back to sleep and be able to finish the rest of her journey, and he continue on by himself, and she chooses to stay awake to stay with him. And as I said, they do fall in love with each other. They do seem to be soulmates, and they do live a long, happy rest of their lives on the ship. It's Hollywood. What can you say? As always, I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all the friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. For you who are watching this on video in the near or very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, Adonai, namaste.